Okay, in this video we're going to try and share some hip tips and hints that will help you put your breadboard circuits together in lab a little bit faster. And sometimes faster just means you're organized, you don't make as many errors, and you can complete things faster than you do before. So one of the first things that we're here, I'll use my pointer, and I'm going to point to these little jumpers. A couple of people have asked about these before. Sometimes I have them vertically because any wire that I bring here isn't really changing anything. It's not shorting anything out. Sometimes I store them that way. Sometimes I store them this way also. You can see these jumpers in use, and what they allow me to do is when I push an IC in, it quickly allows me to pick up a jumper and put power to the IC. So I can get my flat needles nose pliers, and I turn around and move that wherever I want, and that works pretty well. Pulling them out with my fingers, not so easy. These are flat needle nose. I don't know if you can see the part number on there or not. If not, I'll put a link in there. You can ask me. I just bought them off the internet, and they're CHP is the name of the model. So that gives you one of the tips and tricks. Have jumpers ready so that you're not wasting time doing that all the time. And I have those for power and for ground, and I have them different sizes so they reach into the from the bus over into the pins for the IC, and I make them ahead of time. Also too, I know my meter's not in the picture, but you've already heard me say I use these headers, these long headers down here, and I put them down on my bus for plus and minus connections, and I hook up my banana jacks for my meter. You can see the banana jacks, and I always have my meter on the circuit, and I have that on measuring voltage all the time, and I sit that down at the bottom so it's out of the way. I can measure the meter. So I already have a meter there, an easy way to hook it up and move it around if I want to measure actual voltages. Okay, also on the right hand side of my board, I have jumper wires, and I have all different colors, and I have them set up and ready to go. Once again, I just push them in the board so they're have a place to hold them. I'm particularly fond of these jumpers and having a hard time finding them. They're very thin pins, but they're also very rigid, and they work pretty well. So when I hook up my circuit, all I have to do is take this, put it into where I want to go, and then put it to the other pin of the IC, and I can do that very quickly. Moving these little jumpers around is harder to do with a tool, and it's much faster to do with these wires. Now, I said our tips were about organization. Also, you'll notice I have red and I have black, and I use those for ground and VCC connections, but I have yellow, white, and blue. A lot of times I might follow a convention of my inputs are yellow signals and my outputs are blue, and that helps me move a little faster and not make errors also. So those are some of the tips that we have and do. Like I said, we talked about these headers that are here that are long on each header. We talked about those a couple times before, and we like those headers because hooking on the analog discovery 2 pins works very well with that. Now, another thing that helps as we go along here, let me switch the screen, and I have some handouts that are in our coursework section, and I'll stay logged in here. And you know the EET 128 course has a coursework section, and that very first section that we started to use test equipment and circuits was basic logic gates, and there's a lot of nifty handouts in here that I had. A couple of them, common breadboard problems, breadboarding like a pro, and I think there's one more link up here, troubleshooting breadboarded logic circuits. I pulled all those links up so they have them on the screen. Troubleshooting Breadboarding Like a Pro is the first one that I'm going to hit, and you can see I have a schematic here. And I always tell students, if you're hooking something up, work with a schematic. And the reason being is that as people are putting their circuit together, they don't make all the connections. So one of my hints is have your schematic ready, have a highlighter, and highlight the wire connections as you make them. And you'll see me do this, and I've been putting the circuits together for a long time. So that's my first tip. Really my second tip, right? First is have the schematic, have it laying out, and highlight the connections as you make. Some people also get mixed up in connecting their analog discovery test equipment, and you'll see in here I not only label where I have my connections made, but I also give the pin numbers for the analog discovery 2 in there. So you can see always have a schematic when you're breadboarding a circuit, highlight things, label your connections, and then finally down here in the corner you'll see me keep all these files together in one place. The schematic, the waveforms file that I use to set up the signals that I want to connect to the circuit, and the lab documentation. And you can put these in directories however you want. My organization here is to make one directory for the circuit, for the lab that I'm working on in the circuit, and then KiCad, AD2, and lab document directories hold the documents for each of these. You can do that your own way. The other thing that we found out that's pretty useful, and we'll have another video on this, but there's common breadboard troubleshooting things. And after doing this for so many years and working with students, we listed these, and students sometimes listed these, and these are the things that are happening. So we're going to have a separate video on each one of these and see what's here, but these documents are really worthwhile. This one is a little bit more detailed into the troubleshooting procedure or process, what should be going through your mind. And then these are actual problems that we saw students have and what percentage of the time that we see them. And you can see some of these are pretty high percentages. So we'll sit down, have another video, and we'll talk about that stuff in there. But for now, that should get you to speed things up a little bit, you know, sort of see what other people do that make them a little bit quicker or better performers in the lab. And sometimes it's not about moving faster, it's about having things set up and being a little bit organized and color coding your use of wires and different things like that. So I hope you find this very helpful. I'm certain that I've told these tips and worked with people over the years, so you're getting the benefit of all my experience. And watch the video. Thank you very much.